Books that altered my DNA. This stack of books represents me as a reader. And if I have a legacy to leave here on Book Talk, it's this. These are the books that I will never, ever, ever stop recommending. These are the books that I loved so much that I still think about to this day. And these are the books that altered my brain chemistry. And they're all historical fiction. This is in no particular order, but there is a standout favorite. I'll let you know. First up is Angels of the Resistance by Noelle Salazar. When I read this book in 2022, I instantly knew that this was going to be my favorite book of the year. I think I read it in like August of that year, and I was like, we're done here. This is a World War II novel, and I know what you're gonna say. Oh my gosh, there's so many World War II recommendations. This one, if you have not read it and you enjoy pulse pounding fiction, this is the book for you. It's all about two sisters who live in the Netherlands, and they join as young women the resistance, and they fight alongside each other, experience trauma, loss, and change, emotional growth alongside each other. Everyone that has ever read this book that I know has loved it. It really, truly, it just grabs you by the throat and it doesn't let you go the entire time. Yes, there is some kind of young adult aspects of it because the young girls are young girls. However, there are adult themes, and I think it's a realistic portrait of what young people during World War II in occupied countries experienced. They aged much sooner than they should have, because they faced such atrocities. And I think that this book captures that so eloquently, and I am a forever and ever and always Noelle Salazar stan because of this book. I will read anything she writes. Amy Harmon, What the Wind Knows. I read this last year and I legitimately sobbed. It was one of a few books that made me cry last year. I don't cry a lot when I read books, even though I read historical fiction, which is often very sad and heavy. The love story in this book is exquisite. Exquisite. The time travel aspect of it, it's super fun and different because it incorporates Irish culture and heritage and Irish folklore. The Irish history and the politics in this book, and what you learn about Ireland and their fight for independence and their civil war, it's so good. This is what historical fiction is supposed to feel like. This is what historical fiction is supposed to be like. The Unmaking of Jean Farrow by Adrienne Young. Yes, it's another time slip novel. It's a little different than What the Wind Knows. And yes, it has another exquisite love story. What I love about this book is that it's a thread, and the more you keep pulling it, the more it unravels and just kind of falls apart in this beautiful, just poetic way. And when I say it falls apart, you feel much like the character Jean Farrow, that her life is falling apart around her. She's trying to make sense of what is happening in her world. And you really, really get to walk in her shoes because of Young's ability to weave a narrative. This book is absolutely stunning. The twist at the end will leave you breathless. Another World War II novel? Yes, I know, I'm basic. Codename Helene by Ariel Lawhon. If you enjoyed The Frozen River and you haven't read this book, why not? The Frozen River was great. This is excellent. The exquisite love story in this book, it is so just raw and real, and I loved every second of the love story element as well as the resistance element. This is based on the true story of Nancy Wake, and in this book, Nancy is portrayed as just a take no BS kind of woman. The very first chapter, she's applying her red lipstick before she parachutes out of a plane behind enemy lines. Nancy is incredible. If you love Kate Quinn and her World War II stories, this is gonna blow your mind if you haven't read it, because this is so much better. And I love Kate Quinn, but this book is like God tier. Talk about a book that left me hysterically sobbing, like hysterically. I had checked it out from the library on Libby and was reading an e-copy. And the second I finished, I went online to purchase a physical copy for myself and my mother. This is before my mother passed away. And I sent it to her and told her that this book made me feel like her arms were around me, like she was reading alongside me, and that it just reminded me of what it felt like to be a child, what it felt like to be her child. And I'm sorry, I'm crying. I love this book so much. It is one of the most lyrical and prosaic books I've ever read. Alex Harrow incorporates folklore and folk stories and fairy tales and songs and sayings that you can remember. You can remember your mother whispering those to you at bedtime or telling you, don't do that or this will happen. It's profoundly beautiful, as well as, highly feminist. It is a historical fantasy about three sisters who happen to be witches, and they happen to be the last witches, the very last of their kind. And it's up to them to save their town. There's LGBTQ stories in here. There are obviously sister stories, but mother-daughter stories. It's about power, and it's about women's rights, and it's about the strength of women. It changed me. It altered my chemistry, and it will forever be a favorite. What I will tell you is it's slow. You got to take your time with this. And there are times when even I was like, okay, where is this going? But hold on, keep going, because it's worth it. Lastly, and I'm going to try and talk about this one without crying. This is my favorite book of all time, and I read this in January of 2024. I was actually looking back. I started reading it on January 7th, and I recorded a video that day saying I've already found my favorite book of the year. I knew instantly. I knew within just a few chapters that this book was not only going to be the best book that I read all year, but could possibly be the best book that I ever read. And I think it will hold that crown for many, many years. This is Still Life by Sarah Winman. This is World War II adjacent. Again, I'm basic, but this is so much more than that. This book is poetry. This book is a picture and a mirror of life, and just those still moments when if you stop and slow down and take a breath, it reminds you that you're alive. Despite whatever's going on in your life, you're alive. And what a gift, what a blessing that is. Through her writing, Winman makes you stop and appreciate the little things. I remember reading this book and then going out on a dog walk and looking around and looking at my life and my surroundings through the lens of this book. It's just so profound. It's a found family novel about a young man who comes back from war and finds that the woman that he loves doesn't want him. The found family in his small community, it hasn't changed, but he has changed profoundly. By happenstance, he inherits a property in Italy, and he and some of his friends go to live in Florence. So it's a travel novel, and it's a nod to just travel and art and experience, but just life. It's beautiful. These characters and the author's way with words. This book will live in my head rent-free for the rest of my life. I love it so much, and I want everyone to read it. Again, it is slow. And there are going to be times where you're like, where is this going? But I promise you, it's worth it. Are these the best books ever written? No, I don't stand on that soapbox. But these are my favorite reading experiences. And if I leave any legacy here, it's this. Read what you love, what makes you feel, what brings you to life, what makes you look at things differently, and what challenges you to be the best you can be.